Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please gather around and take your seats. We're going to start with the program. My name is Colin Wakefield. I'm your MC for today for this brief introductory program, and on behalf of the Camp Blount Historic Site Association Board of Directors, I would like to welcome you all to the inaugural Camp Blount Volunteer Days. We'll start the opening ceremony with an invocation by Reverend Tim Smith from the Cumberland Presbyterian Church here in Fayetteville, Tennessee. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Wakefield. Let us pray. Eternal and holy God, we thank you and praise you for this beautiful day you have given us. We thank you for our nation and the freedoms that are afforded. And we especially thank you for those that have served our country throughout the generations. As we gather at this place, let us remember the sacrifice of those that have come before us. And may you guide the events of this day so that we may learn the entirety of our history, both the pleasant and unpleasant, with open eyes and open ears, so that we may not repeat the mistakes of the past. We thank you for those that have worked to make this day possible and this park possible. And may everything that takes place here please you, and may all persons be safe this day. We ask this in the name of Christ our Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. And now we'll have our presentation of the colors by the Frank Kelso Naval ROTC from Lincoln County High School, accompanied by the Fayetteville City School Drum Corps. Present the colors. Now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the singing of the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land
Color guard, retire the colors. They got 3 candles. Might have had it's a way to send it off. Kids love it. Okay, at this point in our program, I would like to call on Dr. Ferris Beasley to come up and give us a little bit of information, a history about Camp Bluff. Dr. Beasley.
Thank you, Colin. We're delighted that you're present with us today to learn more about this historic occasion. And I'm going to ask you to use your imagination just a little bit before we start. Today is not October the 1st, 2021. Today is October the 13th, 1813. Had you been here yesterday, October the 10th, you would have seen several hundred military tents spread out across that river bottom. They're gone now. They were broken down at daylight this morning, and they ate an early breakfast. The soldiers at this point in time, if you look that way, I think you can see them in your mind's eye. If you look down there, the soldiers are forming into their companies. There were 1,400 horses tethered down there yesterday. Today those horses are all saddled up and the riders are up. If you look up here to the left, General Andrew Jackson with his staff, and they're already on their horses. He's reviewing the troops as they begin the trek southward. In just a minute he's going to turn to the south, and the order will either be given by him or his aide to begin the march southward, forward march order. That order will be picked up by the company commanders to repeat to their troops, and the troops will be leaving, headed south. Now, back to reality. Why are they here and where are they going? October the 13th, 2013. That's the middle of the War of 1812. The British and the Americans had declared war once again against each other. Shortly after the British had been defeated in the Revolutionary War, couldn't believe they got defeated, thought they could still take us over, so they blockaded our ports on the Atlantic Ocean, landed at Baltimore Harbor, burned the new White House, burned the new Capitol, and then left to prepare to invade New Orleans. That's not all they did. They armed the Indians on the frontier with rifles. Instead of bow and arrows, the Indians now had rifles. We were the frontier. The Warring Creek Indians, there was a civil war going on between the two elements of the Creeks. The Warring faction, called the Red Sticks, wanted to send a message to the federal government that they meant business. They had no way they were going to give up their land to the white man. They were not going to sign any treaties. They were not going to go to the reservation. And so they had to make a show of force, and they did that at Fort Mims, attacked a small military establishment down there. At dawn one morning, 1,000 Creek Indian braves killed 250 men, women, children, babies, and the entire military command there. Massacre. When word of that got to the president, President Madison, he sent word to Tennessee's Governor Wiley Blount, who in turn sent word to Lieutenant General Andrew Jackson, head of the Tennessee militia, to raise the volunteers and the militia and answer that massacre. They left here in October, finally surrounded the Indians in March, killed 900 Creek Indian braves and lost 45 soldiers. That thing was so impressive to President Madison that he appointed General Andrew Jackson Lieutenant General in the regular army and gave him the responsibility to protect New Orleans. Most of the New Orleans troops left Nashville on barges down the Cumberland River, finally sailing down the Mississippi some soldiers left here, Camp Blunt, 9 months after the Indian campaign, Battle of Horseshoe Bend. And so we had, this is pretty important to our little town. We were involved in supplying a muster site for troops to two of the most important battles in the War of 1812, one of which ended the war. Jackson, you know, had between 3,000 and 4,000 troops at New Orleans. He got there about the middle of December. The British left the Bahamas in December on 60 barges with 17,000 soldiers. When they landed, they kept 7,000 on the ships and sent 7,000 to meet General Jackson. The battle only lasted 2 hours. Jackson took care of them. Really, it was a hands-down slam dunk that the British would win that war, because General Pakenham had his wife on board his command ship. And as soon as the victory was accomplished, they would both be installed as the prince and princess of the new crown colony of New Orleans. And by owning that crown colony, Britain would control all the commerce on the Mississippi River. It could have happened. That's about it. Before you leave here today, I want you to get a really close-up look at that volunteer. If you wonder what those soldiers look like preparing to leave, that's what they look like. And look at the expression on his face. It's hard to describe, but that sculptor did a really good job. I think that completes what I wanted to say. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Dr. Beasley. Now I'd like to ask Patrick McIntyre, Executive Director at State Historic Preservation Officer, to come up and say a few words. Patrick, welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I didn't think we were going to make it, but a little bit of traffic on the way to Nashville, but it's nothing like what people experienced to get here 200 years ago. So thank you, Dr. Beasley. I'm glad to get here and hear all that marvelous story of the battle. So I won't belabor that, but it's a glorious fall October morning to be here. Take a look around you. This is the only place anywhere in the world that was saved as part of the bicentennial commemoration of the War of 1812, and I'm so glad to have been a part of it. It's a culmination of so many years of work, and I think you're going to learn a lot of good things here while y'all are out here today. This is the very place, I think, as was probably said, where the volunteer state got its name. And our organization is the State Historic Preservation Office, and I've had the pleasure of serving as director for 14 years now. We put up everything from those historic markers you see everywhere to working with the National Register of Historic Places. We've got 18 historic sites. This is another one of our sites that is operated by the city of Fayetteville and partnerships there. But our involvement here goes back to 1951 when we put up one of those historic markers. And it got stolen at some point, but that wasn't the end of the story, because we did a master plan, and then this was part of a special appropriation in 2013 that led us to be able to purchase this property. So we've helped give grants for the statue here. And the land acquisition fund funded part of this, and so this is protected forever. It's a great amenity for the community to learn about our history, and it'll be here forever, and it'll be an amenity for this community. So the property goes back to prehistoric times as well. The Mississippian period Indians had villages here. It goes back thousands of years beyond that. So they noted as early as 1806, when they were laying out the land here, the presence of pottery shards and things like that. So, and I think it was gone over in the fall of 1813 when the rallying cry for volunteers needed. And this is, again, you go back and tell everybody this is where the volunteer state got its name. I think that's something that's really worth trumpeting. And I've got a lot of history here, but I think that was gone over. But this is always personal to me as well, because, you know, one of the people who was here was Darnell Campbell. He was a young farmer from what's now Cheatham County. And he was my fifth great-grandfather, but he served in Napier's West Tennessee Regiment, Captain Abraham Allen's company. And he trained here before going on down into Alabama, what's now Horseshoe Bend. And so I think about what he might have gone through here, and I bet a lot of you all here are descended from people also who served here. So, but this is a really important site for Tennessee history. I'm glad the weather's cooperative. It was kind of rainy when I left town earlier, and so we're going to set up a tent out here. We'll have be able to answer questions. I brought Graham Perry from our office as well. Graham actually works with historic cemeteries, if you can believe that. So if you want to know anything, Graham's in the back there, and he'll be with me. So in order to not get in the way of other programmatic things, just say how glad I am to be here. The State Historic Preservation Office is proud to be a part of this, and we hope for a wonderful day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, I'm really proud to introduce our next individual that I'd like to come up and say a few words. This individual really was the person that got all this jump started probably over 20 years ago. Camp Blunt project founder, Jerry Mansfield. Would you come up and say a few words, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Wakefield. Farmers all up and down the Elk River bottoms and valleys are harvesting corn right now, and it looks like a good harvest. All of those stalks of corn started with one seed. This event, this spot, and this park started with one seed, planted by none other than Eugene Ham. Mr. Eugene talked about this when nobody else was talking about it. He had classes that he talked to about it. He even had a class one time that he didn't think they were paying attention to what he was trying to tell them about the significance of this bottom. And he looked in their eyes and he told me, he said, I thought I could see a glimmer of them watching the troops leave and getting a sausage and biscuit at Hardee's and going on down to fight the Indians. He had enough humor about him that I think he finally got their attention. He certainly got some others. That seed that he cast during that period of time was passed on to Faye Bradford at the Advanced Placement History class, 2 of them back to back, at Lincoln County High School. They in turn wanted to study it and talked about another monument to go up. They in turn wanted to make something more visible, and they were put in touch with David Wright, a renowned historical artist from Gallatin, Tennessee, who met with them several times, brought his sketches down before he ever did anything with paint on this. They approved the sketches. The students approved them, were presented to them several times, and the rest of that story is it was turned into prints, 500 of which went into a scholarship fund to further education for young people that wanted to pursue interest and degrees in history, political science, and things that were connected to it. So David also lost his 500 prints that were basically most of his payment, because I think he may have broke even. I may have run out of paint, I don't know. But a lot of sponsorship here in Lincoln County from corporate sponsors, banks and such, reimbursed him for most of his costs, and the rest is hanging in the courthouse at the Lincoln County Courthouse in the main courtroom. Those seeds will continue to need to be planted and spread among people that don't know about this place. You young people that are here today need to be spreaders of the word and sowers of the seed that tells about the history of this particular place. 2 other high schools have joined the rank, and I think there's people that are putting in mind to have scholarships for them maybe this next few years. I think they did already 1 year that comes from the proceeds of these prints. There are volunteers here now, today, just like there were volunteers here two centuries ago, that are working hard to make this a place that you will appreciate for years and years to come. And we appreciate all that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We're also honored today to have Representative Pat Marsh here amongst us. Pat, would you like to come up and say something?
I'm really honored to be here today and to be a part of this fabulous ceremony. And I want to ask all of you young people and students here, what do you think it was like 200 years ago when they said, Some of us are going to ride horses, and most of you all are going to march to New Orleans, 500 miles. Let's go. I mean, we are going to march 500 miles. They did. They went down there and beat the British in one day. Our Tennessee Volunteers. And I'm proud to say that that's where we got the name. I say that all over the people I speak to. I'm proud that it happened here in Lincoln County. I want to thank Dr. Beasley and Jerry for getting me involved in it, and Randy D. Lout and the mayors. It's been a labor of love. I also want to thank Governor Haslam and Governor Lee. We worked with them for several years. We got several dollars funded to build the walk bridge across the river that's going to start pretty soon, and to do a lot of this fabulous work down here. Thank all the volunteers. What a great thing to remember our history, to teach our history for many, many years to come, and I'm certainly proud to be part of it. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, Pat. I'd like to call County Mayor Bill Newman to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Colin. Jerry Mansfield, being Jerry Mansfield, did not tell the whole story about sowing the seed, because he was probably, if you selected one person early on that got this started, Jerry Mansfield and Jerry were all obliged to what you did and those others. But this project is very unique in that it's done by so many people that have not tried to get credit for it. Whether you're talking about Dr. Beasley, the mayors, the city, the county. Pat Marsh, if he told you, how much money he was individually responsible for getting started, you would think, well, he's bragging, but he's not bragging. And we've got a lot of good people in Nashville and Washington, but these people here in Lincoln counties who made it possible. And there's just so many of them that if you started naming names, it wouldn't be right to those others that I would forget. It's been a very good situation. When you look at history, and I see Thomas Hastings over there, and his grandfather was one of Jerry and I's teachers, so we appreciate those people that talk about history. When you look at the things that occurred here and where they went, there's a lot of sides to that history. But nothing occurs without God's design and blessing in it. And some things, when you look at it, you think that's not quite fair what occurred. But it occurred, and we live in a God-fearing nation, and history has not stopped. What's occurring on our southern borders, what's occurring in Washington, even this day, is history that will change just as much what happens 200 years from now as it did 200 years ago here. So we need to be aware of that. Get involved. And when I see all these young people here that are involved, I appreciate y'all being here. Continue to study and get involved, and listen to those people like your teachers that they have it a real task to get you exposed to what happened here, but what happened in world history and American history, and you're at a pivotal point of what will occur in your future. So stay involved. Just like to thank everybody that has been involved in this and will continue to be, and anything the county can do to help, we're there for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to ask Fayetteville City Mayor Michael Wisnett to come up.
Thank you. This is a wonderful day. I was fortunate enough, along with Alderman Danny Bryant and Alderman Dorothy Small, who's not here today, back in 2013 when we approved this project, and it was a vision that started in Mr. Mansfield's history class, and it progressed, and then the former City Administrator Scott Collins worked with our state officials and helped us get that direct appropriation of $500,000 so that we could do this. And a year ago we came out here and we dedicated the site with the statue, this beautiful statue that's over here. And I'm glad that this is a day that our youth can come out and see, because what happened here and what we focus on today and how they mustered and moved their way down toward the Battle of Horseshoe Bend and on down to New Orleans is one crucial piece, but there's another piece, and Mr. Mansfield tells the story, he's told the story so well, on this painting that Mr. Wright did. I mean, we have people that you know. We have Andrew Jackson, you understand Andrew Jackson, but we have Davy Crockett, an explorer at the time, who helped explore all parts of Tennessee. And we have Sam Houston, before he's going to be the governor of Tennessee. And most important, we have a local, we have Dr. McKinney, who has relatives even here to this day here in Lincoln County. And what's the significance of Dr. McKinney is he saved Sam Houston's life in order, before he becomes the governor of Tennessee, and after he leaves the state of Tennessee and goes on to fight for the Republic of Texas. We wouldn't have the state of Texas. It wasn't for Dr. McKinney's brother, who built the first steamboats out there and saved Sam Houston's life again when he had a small number of troops, and Santa Anna had 3,000 troops. And the Brazos River flooded, and the steamboats came and picked up Sam Houston before the Battle of Alamo. So this volunteer spirit started here, the Tennessee Volunteer Spirit. That's why we call it Tennessee Volunteers. And we hope that today, for all the young people, that you can tour and get around here and see and envision everything that happened. And we intend to hopefully build this up and have more parts added over the years. But I also want to thank our current board members here today. I have Alderman Jeff Alder and Alderman Tanya Allen, and we have other board members that aren't here. And I want to thank all the volunteers at Camp Blunt. There's a lot of just free time they put on their time to do this. I want to thank FPU for coming out and clearing out there in the woods to make this experience as you walk down toward and see the view of the river. So enjoy this time. I think after this, they're going to release the students off into these different areas and everything, but thank you everybody for coming today.
Thank you, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our opening ceremony. I think you can see by these young people around here that the volunteer spirit is alive and well in Fayetteville and Lincoln County in the state of Tennessee. Dismissed.